Now we'll move into ephedrine and cardio. Now, my weight routines are usually already pretty intense. Like they're heart pounding endeavors that are already fairly taxing on my central nervous system. So, for this reason, when I do use my ECA stacks, I'll usually only do them on cardio only days. Or now I'm doing two a days. So I'm doing cardio first thing in the morning with a single dose of the Broncaid. And then in the evening, like at least 12 hours later, is when I'm actually doing my weight session. So that seems to be working for me as well. And again, I've just experimented over the years, came across this protocol for exactly what I'm looking to do now. It fits my schedule, fits my routine, all that good stuff. And it works. So, if it works, I'm just going to keep doing it. So at this point in your fat loss journey, um, you really shouldn't be focusing on creating more muscle. Since you are on ephedrine primarily or specifically for fat loss, you already should be in a caloric deficit, to be honest. If you decide to be in a surplus and you still use ephedrine, that's great. Maybe it can mitigate some of the additional fat loss, but really, if you're trying to bulk and you're having too much fat loss, then you probably need to adjust your diet and clean it up just a little bit. If we're being honest here, so what I recommend if it's your first time doing cardio and ephedrine, do some very light cardio first. I mean, even as light as just taking a walk around the block, just to see how your heart rate responds, to make sure you don't get too anxious or maybe on the paranoid side. Again, any of those side effects that any amphetamine-based medication might give you. You'll actually be really surprised if you're not used to ephedrine of how quickly your heart races for the first few times. Like for me, it's literally to the point where it feels like my aorta is about ready to burst outside the side of my neck. But you know what? After a while, again, as I mentioned before, and as with anything, you'll get used to it. Especially as you start nearing low body fat percentages, you will want to preserve as much lean muscle mass as possible. So that being said, you really want to stick one goal, or you want to pick one goal and then just absolutely stick with it. Now, that's not to say I haven't lifted while taking ephedrine, but I find, for example, if I take a single tablet and then I go and do an intense weight training session, I find just overall that I'm much weaker. My chest pounds uncomfortably hard, like literally heart rate from the sternum is just beating out of my chest. And then my mind muscle connection is almost non-existent because I'm more on the ADHD side, and it does give me a drowsy effect. And that's just for me personally. So for this reason, I really don't mind skipping the weights for a few days to speed the fat loss along. And in fact, rereading this, that's probably something I need to do now. Just, three, however many it takes, cardio only days, just to really just blast the rest of that fat that's hanging on. Now, once I do pick up the weights, I'm actually never disappointed at the increased definition and vascularity. And, plus some extra recovery for your muscles never hurts, especially when you're blasting your system with stimulants and you're in a caloric deficit.